Coming up on this week's URC Rewind, we've got old presenters, we've got new presenters, we've got some presenters, we've got some same old, we've got some brand new stuff. It is time to look at round two of the European Cup. Let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the URC Rewind. Your eyes do not deceive you, neither do your ears. I am back for 1 week only with me, Lee G. Hugh is on his way back, should have landed by now, actually. He's on his way back from the south of France, hobnobbing it with all of the posh people that go and watch fixtures abroad when it's European time. So I shall introduce my good friends Mohammed and Adam. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Good evening. Doing well.
Good. Excellent. And those of you on YouTube will notice that we are back to four. We have a Scottish person joining the pod this week. So,
Yes.
So Ethan is joining us to see how, provided we don't annoy him too much this week, gents. We may come back and do it again. So, you know.
To be fair, I'm full of compliments for Glasgow, so.
Okay. Ethan,
especially this week.
Yeah.
Well, for only for this week only, Ethan. I'm sorry. It's only for this week.
Ethan, tell us about yourself, mate, and who you support, and all of the fluffy bits that people love to hear.
Hello, my name's Ethan, as you've been introduced to me. I'm from the northeast of Scotland, so it's absolutely miserable outside, and the heating's on, and I'm actually shivering under this jumper. But I'm a Glasgow Warriors fan, which absolutely fantastic result from yesterday. We'll watch Edinburgh as my second team, which is quite nice. No commitment to Edinburgh. I just get rage baited for the pure love of the game. And yeah, so my family's always been a rugby family. My great granddad used to play for Scotland during the war, took some shrapnel in his hip that killed his career, which thankfully that's what ended his career and nothing else. And then second cousin was, I think, Scotland A, Scotland B, like 30 years ago. And I think he's the one who created his own Wikipedia page. And for my great granddad as well, probably him. Yeah. But my career ended at the micro level. I got to, I think, 9 years old, and I just couldn't be bothered. The Wii was too much fun back in the day. And I was like, you know what, that's how I'm going to commit my life. And now I'm looking back on it, I'm a bit like, yeah, maybe I should have stuck in a bit more. But
see, I'm 50, and I look back at it and I go, I probably should have retired when I was 9, because I talk people through my injuries, and it takes a good 3 or 4 minutes just to point out where all my rugby injuries are still. So I think retiring at 9 might not be a bad option, mate. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do the usual format. All the usual thing. I say that I haven't been on here for over 12 months. I think it was 12 months ago. Was it your first one, Adam? That was.
No,
did I step in?
Was it my first one? No, because I've done it with Hugh. I've done it with Hugh as my first one. I think you were definitely there for. No, you were there for the Interpro show. That's why I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
You
that's
stepped in.
Yeah.
Stepped in.
Yeah. It's been a long time. Again, when you get to 50, you forget which pods you've been on and when you were on them. So, right, let's crack on then, gents. So I'm gonna share the usual stuff, okay, and we'll just do all of the stuff that we normally do. So this is going to annoy me now because my screen has gone over there. I forget the joys of podcasting, sharing a screen, and you know the bit where you got all your co-presenters covering the results. Yeah, just remember that one. Okay, Adam, you can kick us off. Friday night then, Leicester and Leinster. What did you make of that game, mate?
Yeah, so it was one of those games where, it's this thing that we're going to constantly say about Leinster. Leinster winning games comes as no surprise, and they did it well. The one thing that Leinster can do very well is make a game look as well. They didn't really make it look as difficult as they made it, but they make winning look easy in terms of that sense. They can sort of switch it on in the second half, and that's what they did with tries through Jameson Gibson Park and Dan Sheehan. Um, that fully basically killed the game off for them. I just found it really interesting how when I was looking at the teams as well, looking at the lineups, that I haven't really watched much of the Tigers in general because I don't really watch the Premiership, but I wouldn't have it down as maybe their strongest team that they can put out. When I was looking through their squad, I didn't really. There was no names that really stood out. There was the likes of Freddie Stewart, and Tommy Raffle. Like those are names that stand out. And to be fair, they put up a good fight against Leinster, but Leinster are this machine that just keep on going and going, and they just won't stop until somebody eventually would, like Northampton last year. But I think for Leinster's sake, I feel like they'd be very well, not settled with the result. They were down 15-6 at halftime. Leicester put in a really good 40 minutes against them, and as I said, I don't think it was their strongest team that they put out. But in that second half, they brought on Dan Sheehan, and that's almost just like, yeah, when you bring on Dan Sheehan, he's that game changer that you need. He's the player that you need to come on in those moments and change the game. But yeah, after all that, I think Harry Byrne had a really good game, which is one of those debates that we're having at the minute about, the 10 in Ireland, the 10 at Leinster. They're both very good players, but I think Harry Byrne made a pretty good statement there as well. And it's all about how Prendergast is going to reply in the league next week.
I think the least we talk about Prendergast, the better, in all honesty. We know there are some people very touchy on the subject, so we'll skip on next.
As I said, they're both very good players. They're both very good players. It's just who performs on the day.
You just don't know have to.
Political answer.
Yeah, you just don't know have to answer to people on YouTube going, you had to go at Prendergast again. Okay, Mohammed, Stormers and Stade Rochelet, a decent win at home. Was that expected?
Yeah, when I looked at the squads, also great that the Stormers took this game to Berga, formerly known as Port Elizabeth. Yeah, at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. Nice stadium, by the way. Still in quite good condition. The attendance was quite good, although the camera was facing the other stand that wasn't very well attended. The main stand was quite well attended. So yeah, the Stormers, for the most part, just bossed the game, especially up until the 25th minute, and then La Rochelle came back in to an extent. But yeah, the quality of the Stormers team shone through, and yeah, eight wins out of eight in all competitions. Yeah, I think it's about time I say Stormers first team to win the URC and maybe first South African team to win the Champions Cup.
Oh, don't see. There's going to be comments. There's going to be comments.
We need to, Ethan. What you'll find out is that when you say something, people will remember it. And it's like things like that like if I'd say like Trevisa were to win the Challenge Cup, and if they do, you either look great or you look a bit like, oh. There's one comment that will remind you.
Well, I can tell you this for nothing, Mohammed. I am clipping that comment and I am putting that comment out on socials because Mohammed says that yeah.
To be fair, I would sort of Mohammed, I would back Mohammed in that sense that they are definitely showing that they're contenders. The thing that I said before the Champions Cup started was that we need a South African team to not like that they didn't take it seriously, but I feel like the Stormers this year are like we underspoke so much about them at the start of the year, and now what they're unbeaten. They're unbeaten in the league. They're unbeaten in Europe. They're putting in these really good performances. 42 points against La Rochelle. It's nothing to go sniffed at. Like it's nothing not to be sniffed at. They are taking it seriously, and it's quite terrifying because they've got such a good squad.
I think it's also interesting is that now they've played 8 games, and in the preview show, we weren't really sure what their strengths and weaknesses were exactly, because there's only so much you can gain from sort of preseason and stuff. Now we're starting to see that, yes, they do have weaknesses, but they have a very balanced squad. Their coaching staff is not shy to rotate, and in a similar way to Leinster, in that when they do rotate, the consistency is still there. So, yeah, I think from a South African perspective, we want to be optimistic. And so that's why I said that earlier. But also, it's somewhat selfish for me because I'd obviously love to attend a Champions Cup semi-final at the City of Cape Town Stadium. So which is not that far from me.
Right. So it's got nothing to do with the Stormers actually being decent. You just want to go and see a game quite close to you, a semi-final quite close to you. And I can live with that.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I can respect that, to be fair.
Yeah. That's honesty, that is. Okay, so Mohammed, still with you then. The Hollywood Bet Sharks and Saracens. I mean, did Saracens rotate the squad much for the trip down south, or was that a full strength Saracen side that got taken apart by the mighty Sharks? Which was it?
Like Adams, I also don't follow the Prem that closely, but when I looked at the Saracens team, it wasn't completely a second team, but like, I mean, Bedell was on the bench. He didn't make much of an impact. Sharks are just riding their luck in this game. Look, win's a win. We've got a new head coach, still the same assistant coaches, so we're very much in the same boat as the Bulls. You can't really judge Johan Ackerman or JP Peterson if they're the new head coaches, but the structure around them is all identical. So how are you going to change the ethos and the atmosphere around the team? But yeah, the Sharks got some of their Springboks back. No Ebenezer because he's suspended through his own stupidity. Oxen is injured, and Vincent Koch is the and thereabouts. JP Peterson did bring in some younger props into the team, former baby box, that type of thing. And they did well. The scrum wasn't particularly great. It got us through, but towards the end, there was some pressure, and if Saracens had scored, they would have won the game. And we rode our luck a little, and then they had a poor line out, and then we sort of celebrated. So yeah, I mean, Owen Farrell didn't make the trip, so no one got a concussion.
Yeah,
and because he's famous for not tackling with his arms. And yeah, what he's lost, the most famous South African victim was Andre Estesen, who played his 100 Sharks game. And so he was made captain as well. Sia Kolisi scored the first try, but he seemed to get an injury through that. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, the Sharks, the game as it relates to the Champions Cup that I'm looking forward to for the Sharks is the Sharks versus Sharks game versus Sale Sharks. That should be kind of fun to watch.
Oh, the Jaws Derby. I think I'm going to head to that one. It's only down the road.
So, Mohammed, are you just trying to capture all of the YouTube comments this week? Like not just the URC fans, but we're going to go for all the English fans as well, and just see if you can just everyone have a go at Mohammed this week because he said some crazy stuff on the pod this week. Is that the aim? Is it?
I just got opinions, I guess.
Right. Okay. Moving on. We're going to skip this one because it doesn't involve any of us. But I saw a report today saying that Sale Sharks have been their manager. They've been their coach. Did anyone else see that on?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. But they won. Who gets sacked after a win in Europe away in France?
Angie Postecoglou. I feel like sports though, I feel like sporting professionalism nowadays has a lot to say, and there must be something under those lines. Even if they did win, like the Sale Sharks have a very good squad in general. There must have been something there. There wouldn't have not been.
I think I was going to say from the signs of it, it sounded like he agreed to stand down or whatever before the match, from what it sounds like, from the one salesperson I regularly see on Twitter, who's very happy that was at Contempione. Is that what the coach is called? That he's now gone, because apparently that's sales. What 10 months have been pretty rough.
Yeah, it's a rough place. My son lives up there. It's not a place I want to go to very often. Not because my son's there, but like because it's a rough place. Okay, we're going to skip over the next one because that's just too hard for me to even contemplate. I mean, Hugh was out at this game, yeah, and Hugh's got like about 20 photos of him with the squad after the game. They don't look too disappointed, in all honesty.
Yeah, I wouldn't be 21 points against Bordeaux. Do you know what I mean? Like it's in Bordeaux. It's nothing like it's quite a good attacking performance in that sense. It's just that Bordeaux are one of the favorites to win it. You know, is there a favorite in the Champions Cup is there a favorite in the Champions Cup at the minute with all the different results that are happening at the minute? But Bordeaux and the Stormers and Leinster and Munster are seeming to be the only consistent ones that are getting wins in these two rounds alone.
It's still 50 points. It's
Yeah.
from what I've seen of the game, it was a valiant effort, but it's like I was listening to it on the radio, and they basically went, so and so ran with it. He's 20 odd stone, passed it to so and so. He's a little bit lighter. He's 19 and a half stone. Then there was a ruck, and then some other guy who was like 22 stone. And you're like, seriously? And these boys are big and quick and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to look at a 50-point defeat and go, we played well. Do you know what I mean? You when you've got 50 points up against you, but like you say, last year's champions, it's we're just happy to be playing with the big boys. I'll be honest. We're just happy to be in that league where we're playing in the big boys, and you know when you scrape into it, you're gonna be in a pretty rubbish group, whichever way you go. So, yeah, it was a nice trip. All of the supporters had a really nice time. Hugh ate very, very well. There's a lot of stuff in Wales about let's bin the URC and go play in the Premiership. Hugh's all in favour of binning the URC and going and playing against the French teams just so we can have some away games and have some decent food when we go to away games. Seriously,
You can't. Yeah, look, if you want the comments to come after you, then I'd have to say, like, an away trip to Italy would be class for if you're talking like all of the you know.
yeah, I get what you. Yeah, I mean, I guess the Italian food would be right up there as well. But maybe we could have an Italian French Welsh league. Maybe that would be purely for the food, and possibly some of the wine. If that might
And
be a better.
Maybe throw like a
just to be able,
Spanish team in there as well. I don't know.
yeah, have a couple of wins, have a couple of wins as well. You know,
If you're eating well and drinking well, the rugby is kind of like just what happens on the side. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's move on. Ethan, I promise we're getting to a Scottish side here somewhere, mate. They're on their way. They're right.
the next one,
They're next. They're next. Stick with me, fella. Okay, Munster and Gloucester. Now, before you go and tell me how good Munster were in this game, Adam, okay, my son reassures me, is my other son, not the one in Manchester, the one in Gloucester, he reassures me that that was basically an academy side that they sent. Over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so I was like keeping up with it and I was watching it as well. But I also had my co-hosts on the Interpro show on the group chat giving like their opinions on it. And this was a Munster almost first team. Like this is like a really strong Munster team. You had your like Suir, Jean Klein's back, Burns back, Casey and Crawley. That's their first team and they struggled in the first half with like basically converting like making points out of it. Gloucester went up 3-0 and then by the 20th minute Munster scored. And then after that it was sort of like a really quiet first half. It was really cagey. It was really cagey down in Cork, and then sort of when the second half came, and as you said, they brought a lot of academy boys in. The professionalism started to show. That difference between professionalism and academy systems started to show when Munster really started to go in on them, and they scored. They scored, I think, 3 tries within 13 minutes. They scored 3 tries within 13 minutes. So, the 31-3 flattered Munster in that sense. It really did flatter them because Gloucester, I don't think it was exactly that Gloucester's defence was great, but they made 194 tackles against Munster's 90. They were putting in an absolute shift in that academy sense, and I think Munster were struggling to find ways of getting through their defence, and they did eventually, and there was 13-minute gap, but. Yeah, I think Munster fans are more frustrated than anything else. I think it's sort of the same with Leinster fans. It's like they could have won by a lot more than they did, and they didn't really capitalize on what they were having. And it's really weird speaking about it. Like they didn't win by 31 points, but if you look at most of the game, it was very cagey, very ropey. Gloucester didn't look like they were having a foot in it at all. They only had one clean break, yeah, one clean break, and that's sort of shown by their scoreline. But Munster's almost flattered them because they sort of struggled to score up until, as I said, the last 13 minutes when they just turned the screw. But as we can sort of say for Leinster as well, Munster have developed this form of winning. They will win no matter what nowadays, and they've got the system. They will eventually get there, but you'd expect Munster to beat them by 20 points more. Do you know what I mean? With the squads on show, you would expect them to win by 20 points or more. But to be fair, it was in Cork and they had a really good attendance for it, 36,000. It looked like a really good time. Yeah, rugby aside, I feel like for Munster, it was quite a good way of showing the game in the Parc Queeve. I've 100% said that wrong, and I'm gonna get I'm gonna get a mention on the Interpro show. But yeah, it flatters them on paper essentially.
So basically, what Adam is saying, and let's be clear, this is Adam saying this, is Munster scraped by. We're lucky to get 30 points. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Glasgow and Stade Toulousain. So, Ethan, this is your no. Take it easy. There's no big pressure on this, but this is all about you now, my friend. Give us the rundown on Glasgow and see, I like pronouncing French teams properly. Stade Toulousain, all yours.
So what a month for 21-0 comebacks is the first thing to say. And it was good to be on the right side of that for once. And again, also very good to be on the right side of Kinghorn missing a try-saving pass into touch. Good to actually enjoy that for once. It's not often I cheer for that. This was an absolutely cracker of a game. So first 5 minutes, very physical from Glasgow, which is where they went wrong, I think, with Sale last week, because last week I don't know if they just weren't expecting Sale to be so physical. That just took them a while to get in the game. But against Toulouse, it was all out. They were hyped up. Excellent counter rucks within 5 minutes. I think there's like 2 counter rucks in the first 5 minutes, which I think is quite rare from Glasgow. But eventually, the star man, Antoine Dupont, scores his first try, which was quite a good try. Through, I think it was Flamont, like a Flamont offload to Dupont that Glasgow just wasn't expecting. And that not opened the waterworks per se, but that was a bit, Glasgow were a bit caught off guard. Then I wrote so many notes, I had to quickly summarize them.
You're more prepared than me, Ethan.
Yeah. Yeah. The Edinburgh notes, not very positive. So I'm glad to have some positivity here. Because I think then what you have, a key turnover by Kyle Steyn in the 18th minute on Kinghorn. That, again, could have been a nasty result if Kinghorn think or was able to break through. Then you've got Gurge. Gurge. It wasn't a centre that I'd heard of, but he slips out an attempted tackle by Josh Mackay for the second try, which looked a bit forward, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it made that much of a difference in the long run. But after that, that was a bit, as a Glasgow fan, not impossible, but Glasgow was starting to build a bit of a mountain to climb, especially one you don't want against Toulouse. And then I'm trying to remember, there's oh no, that's for his second try. He scored a try earlier. That was the one that was a bit sus. But the second try was the one where Josh Mackay was a bit unlucky because I think the weather, everyone was soaking. It was rainy. Whenever you looked at the camera, it was either blowing a hoolie and the flags were like that, or the rain was sideways. And yeah, it's one of those ones that any other day, Josh Mackay would have nailed him in that tackle. But the most important moment of that half was at the end. I think it was an overtime. I think it was like 41, where Jamie Dobie does an incredible try-saving tackle on Capowozzo, just bring him into half. And then Franco must say some incredible, really positive things, or has such an incredible shouting voice, because Glasgow, in these sorts of games, when they come out in that second half, are completely different. But I think the main thing that helped Glasgow was the wind being in their back. Mm-hmm. As I noticed this with the Sale game, that Glasgow weirdly, whenever the weather's really bad, always choose to play against the wind in the first half, and then in the second half, they play with it. And I don't know if that's deliberate. I don't know if that's me drawing something out of nothing, but I did think, that's 2 weeks in a row. That's a bit weird. And then let's think. Oh yeah, Josh Mackay starts to turn the momentum by scoring a very classic Glasgow try. And because of my limited rugby playing, I've referred to it as the old, basically they run this way, pull defenders in, pass it off, they then go inwards pass just to open up space, and Josh Mackay was able to just run it in after that. Fingers crossed Josh is okay afterwards, because he's quite a big part of the Glasgow back line. We don't really have anyone else in the backs, because everyone does something else. Like Kyle Staines technically a centre, but he plays on the wing. Dobie and Horn, both scrum halves, play on the wing. Ollie Smith should be fullback, but has played everywhere else in the back line this season. So fingers crossed he's fine. And then, Gregor Brown, absolute monster, gets a second try for Glasgow, and that's really when Glasgow start to believe in it. And after that, Sione Tuipulotu scores and Gregor Hiddleston. That brings it up to 28. That's when Scotland was shaking. That it was completely sold out. I think Scotland 7,000, which it's quite a small stadium, but you can hear everything on that pitch. It is very quiet. You can even hear the players if you're right behind the posts. They were getting behind that noise. And so that's when Glasgow pulled a blinder, something that Scotland wouldn't be able to do, which is one of the fun Glasgow fans discussing about Scotland's coaching. You never know, maybe a certain Franco Smith should take from Townsend, but that's another conversation. Then, as I said, Kinghorn missing that pass that would have scored a try, which was again one of those moments that was a massive relief. Dempsey gathered a loose ball, which was from a Toulouse line out, that I think they overshot it, or I can't remember if they overshot, or Dempsey tackled someone very hard to cause the ball to go back when he chased it. It's classic Jack Dempsey. And Glasgow just managed to see it out, which everyone was shocked by. We thought it'd be close, and I wanted to go to this match, but have to save money. But oh my gosh, everyone's absolutely bouncing off that win. But it's one of those ones that you can't, you can't be like, oh yeah, we're going to win it, because realistically, we could go far in it, but Glasgow and Edinburgh don't have depth to just pull out, because that Toulouse team was one that probably you could put up against an international side, and they would either win or put it very fancy. They've got the financial resources of an international side. But yeah, no, this is a big step up from Glasgow after getting nilled by Scarlets by 21 2 weeks ago. So yeah, no, it was just absolutely cracking. And oops, sorry.
No. Good. So with all of that, all of the stuff, and the bit that I took out of that was there's a Scotsman complaining about the weather.
Yeah.
And I got family in Scotland, and whenever they talk about the weather, my reply to them is, "You live in Scotland. What do you expect?"
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that game, but I think that's one that I'm going to go look at the highlights of, because that sounds like, I mean, for Blair Kinghorn to miss a potential tries at the end that would have won it for him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got conspiracy written all over it, isn't it? That's
Get the tinfoil hats out and
get
stuff.
the tinfoil out. Yeah, let's go on that one. Right. Okay. Let's move on to today's games then. So again, another game that doesn't affect any of us, Harlequins and Bayonne, 68-14. I mean, we like to tell ourselves that French sides don't like to travel, but 68-14.
That's certainly something.
That's
something.
That's a scoreline and a half. Okay. So next one. Okay, this is going to be fun. This is where Ethan's going to dominate all of the comments in the YouTube section this week. So Castra 33, Edinburgh 0. All yours, Ethan.
So it was an interesting one in that when on paper that Edinburgh team, it's clearly rotated. That you've got, I think Doohan and Darcy weren't there. Can't really think of who else wasn't there. Well, Grant Gilchrist wasn't there, but it was that perfect. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's actually quite well balanced of rotation, giving the youngsters a shot, and having that hit glass in case of emergency experience on the bench with like Ewan Ashman and stuff. And the crazy thing, so it was 5-0 at halftime. Edinburgh could have scored, I think it was in the first half, but Piers O'Connor got held up. And then I just don't know where it all went wrong. Because I think Castra was scoring before the yellow card, and that they just lost it. They just completely lost their head. The commentator, I think it was Andrew Cotter, was saying Edinburgh had really good scramble defence, but that's all they had to do. They were just scrambling. There was no structure. There's no semblance of a game plan. I think it didn't help that Edinburgh's bench, I think it was your standard 7-2, but as Scotland found out earlier this year, when two of your backs knock each other out and they get injured, and your two backs on the bench don't quite fit the two backs that were needing replaced, it gets a bit hairy. And yeah, unlucky for Jack, I think it's Jack Brown and Matt Curry, that they had to come off. And I think that just completely, Wes Houston had to go on like a half early, and oh boy, it just got a bit that Edinburgh just lost it. It's a shame though, because the youngsters, we all were quite excited because Ollie Blythe Lafferty pulled a blinder against Toulon last week in his first start. Only had 1 minute to put, or 90 seconds the week before against Ospreys in the RC. So I think that was his second start. So we were all hyped up for him. Liam McConnell, Freddie Douglas, and I can't remember what he's called. Mikey Stewart, Mikey White. Whoever came on to replace Bowen Fenter, or Harry Morris as well. But yeah, no, it's just you're hoping for them to at least be more competitive for that experience. They'll still gain something from it, but no, just for all the optimism from last week with Toulon, that brings anyone who follows Edinburgh back down to reality of the Jekyll and Hyde performances of incredible at home. You know, they beat Toulon at home, who I would probably put in one of the contenders for this season's Champions Cup. I think that's reasonable. But then just completely collapse away to Castra, even though tight first half. But yeah, no, I don't think there's any leadership on the pitch, because if you compare that to Glasgow, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I bet it was sunny down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I'm getting a theory about Scottish sides, boys.
Yeah.
My theory about Scottish sides is they can only play when the rain is horizontal. This is my theory on Scottish sides.
Could I add on to the point about Ethan about
Yeah.
what the Edinburgh team looked like? And it was something that me and Hugh pointed at last week, is that this Champions Cup feels like you can win one game and still get through. So teams are now sending heavily rotated teams, and there is the beauty of the Champions Cup beforehand, like before they did the whole table thing, was that you sent your strongest team home and away. You sent your strongest team. But now you get results like 33-0, and we're not going to talk about it, but the result below it with 45-34. Toulon, who got beat by Edinburgh last week, and Bath, who are one of the contenders to win it, is that the issue now is that we have a big situation where we can have send rotated squads, and we can afford to have 3 losses and just take one win and get through anyway.
Mm. Oh yeah, and I can't remember how it works, but the dropping down to the Challenge Cup as well.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of like getting caught by the safety nets. But I mean, Edinburgh did fairly well in the Challenge Cup last year to then lose to Bath. But no, we all thought Sean Everett should have went a long time ago, and then that Toulon performance was maybe he's getting it with the result against the Ospreys the week before. Granted, it was against a heavily conscripted Ospreys, and that was a fairly stacked Edinburgh, and Edinburgh only scraped a win by the back of their teeth. But that's going to get the Everett out, pitchforks getting sharpened again.
Well, to be fair, they've been sharpened for a long time.
Oh yeah,
They've just been waiting in the cupboard, haven't they?
Yeah.
Right. Let's move on to Toulon and Bath. I mean, it looks, just on that scoreline, it looks like a belting game, 45-34. But nothing to do with us, so we won't worry on that one. So I know that Mohammed is going to love this next score. So try and dig your way out of this one, Mohammed. So Bulls lost 50 points to 5 against Northampton Saints. Let's have your excuses. Yeah, let's have your excuses first on how does a South African side lose by 50 points in England? All yours, my friend.
Producer Lee, are you under the impression that I support the Bulls? I think no. Does Adam feel sad if Leinster lose? I've not seen that happen.
No comment.
I know Kaylin feels happy if Leinster lose, but I mean, if you watch a bit of an animal, like and subscribe to that podcast as well, this African specific podcast. The Sharks have not been doing well for weeks, and the Bulls have sort of been there and thereabout, and they've just been like bashing the Sharks. And this week, Stormers won, predictably, because they're really, really good. Sharks won by the skin of their teeth through just sort of incompetence. By the way, Sharks, and people often say that the Sharks and the Stormers have the same owner. They just have slightly overlapping owners. Another misnomer is that the Sharks have the wealthiest owner in South African rugby. No, it's still the Bulls. To the extent that the Sharks actually have a system now where we sell players with one year left on their contract so we can make money back. The Bulls, on the other hand, throw money at games, and they sent a really good squad. People compare this to when the Bulls sent a B team on purpose in the knockout round to Northampton. Northampton played their first team, and then Northampton completely ran them over. In this instance, the Bulls sent a competitive team New fly off though, more younger, more mobile. Kate Voliter, who just moved over from the Lions after he fell out with the coaching staff there. So there's drama as it relates to that, but he's more of a Johan Ackerman sort of style of fly off if he can stay fit. And like I said earlier, it's Johan Ackerman. The only thing different between last year and this year is Johan Ackerman's the head coach and not Jake White. So what has really changed? And as it relates to Northampton, they played their first team. They played really well. And when Northampton play well, Northampton are one of the few Prem teams I actually do watch quite often. When they play well, it's fun to watch. They seem to enjoy themselves, especially if it's at home. It's a fantastic atmosphere. And yeah, the Bulls were on the back foot the entire game. So hopefully they can sort of learn from this. If they're not, yeah, because the playoff thing, like Adam said, you can sometimes scrape the playoff with one just one game, just one win, and maybe get a losing bonus point here and there. But that's more than likely also going to result in you getting an away game in the knockout round. So if you're a European-based team and you get another European-based team away, like you're an English team and you get a French team or an Irish team and you get a French team, so on and so forth, maybe not such a bad idea, a bad outcome. But if you're a South African team and now you have to play a quarterfinal away, or if you're a Irish team and you have to fly down to South Africa, that's gonna hurt you. So yeah, the Bulls are gonna have to regroup as per usual. They've been legitimately consistently inconsistent the whole season.
Are they overrated? Are the Bulls overrated?
I think people give them a lot of credit. I think they do have a solid team. I think Jan de Koning sort of said it well the other day, rugby journalist, that and the Bull CEO came out in defense of the new head coach Johan Ackerman and said, like, look, these are all the factors working against him, and we're going to give him time to actually execute. On paper, they should be performing better, even with this team that they flew over. But as we know, the game's not played on paper; it's actually played in real life. So I think they evenly rated. The fact is that they got to the URC final last year, but then they fell way short. So they needed a reboot, but they did like a soft reboot. They didn't. The Sharks are in the situation that Munster were last season, maybe Ulster to an extent were last season, where we need a full-on reboot. But that's only going to happen at the end of the season. Whereas the Bulls did a soft reboot, and it's not producing the outcome that they might have hoped.
I also like at the start of the season we would have had almost the Stormers in the Bulls position and the Bulls in the Stormers position, like as in our sort of predictions were that if we looked at the results for the Bulls, that would have been the Stormers, and if you would have looked at the Stormers results, that would have been the Bulls. So it's such an interesting switch.
I know. I think it's a shame for the Bulls in that they always seem to be the bridesmaid in that they've gone to more URC finals than anyone else, but haven't won anything. And it just, I mean, like, imagine, like that would get into a final, brilliant, but just losing it 3 times would just, oh my gosh, that'd be horrible.
I don't think Mohammed is that sympathetic
No.
towards them. Okay. Right. Okay. So ignore that one there. That was the score when we started. So they had 20 minutes left in that game, and that game between the Bears and Section Pelois. You see, my French is improving. Section Pelois.
I can see you being on your Duolingo.
Not allowed on it anymore. The wife won't let me.
Oh.
My wife's a French teacher, but my wife teaches French and German. So I'll come up with a section palois and she'll just rip me to pieces for 10 minutes on my pronunciation and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I have
Anyway,
a 975-day streak on Duolingo.
Wow.
learning
Fair
what
enough.
language? What language?
Dutch, which is
Wow.
relatively
Okay,
easy
yeah,
because
fair
I
enough.
also speak Afrikaans.
Yeah.
First. Fair enough.
I'm quite eager
Yeah.
to sort of use my engineering career to maybe source a job in the Netherlands. So I figured use the app.
See, every now and again, Mohammed will say something and you just go, wow, that's really cool. And yeah, he hates the Bulls and he can speak Dutch. Fair dues. So anyway, the Bears and Poe game finished 61-12 to the Bears, which doesn't really affect us, but interesting to know on that. So I'm quickly going to do a quick rundown of the Challenge Cup fixtures as well. But before I do, if you are listening and liking what you are seeing, then please do give us a subscription on YouTube. Makes a massive difference to us. Share our social media, all of those kind of things. Makes a massive difference, and we all love it. Makes you feel loved. That's what it is. I've done the psychology on this. When you get a little subscription on YouTube, it makes you feel loved. And then people lay into you on comments, and you go, "Oh yeah, there you go. There's everyone else."
The
Okay,
healthy
so
balance.
I wouldn't call it that. I've seen some of the comments. It's not a happy balance at all. Um, I'm quickly going to run down these. If anybody wants to chirp in, if you've seen any of these games, guys, and you want to just say whether it was good, bad, or ugly, then by all means do. So Montpellier 31, Palm Zebra 7, Benetton 44. Oh, USAP. I keep calling them USAP.
Perpignan.
Thank you. I've got one of their scarves. I swapped it with a supporter. Benetton 41, 44, Perpignan 31, Cheetahs 22, Stade Francais 45. Anything on that, Mohammed? I know you've got a bit of a sweet spot for the Cheetahs.
It's nice to see them playing competitive rugby, and I would just encourage everybody to tune into a bit of an animal where we will deep dive that game later this week.
Excellent, fantastic. Montauban Ospreys. I've got to say, so I did watch this. No, I'm a Scarlet supporter, so Ospreys don't get much from me, but they were, pretty much in control for most of that. It genuinely looked like Montauban hadn't seen each other for the first 20 minutes. Then they played 20 minutes of rugby, and then the Ospreys just kind of screwed that game down in the second half. Totally deserved the win on that. So 33-22 away. That's any away win in the European Cup, whatever level, is half decent. Newcastle Red Bulls 14, Lions 10. I was expecting more from Newcastle. I think Lions sent quite a rotated side. Am I right on that, Mohammed? Or yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
They're trying to keep their really good players back for the URC games, which we're going to preview later. So yeah, it resulted in the result that I figured it would, but it also gave a lot of young players an opportunity.
Okay. So Adam's going to love this next result. 29-26, Adam. Pull that one out of your arse, mate. Come on.
Yeah, this is going to be one that we're going to be deep diving on the Interpro show, but to put it lightly, I think the wheels fully fell off in the last 13 or so minutes for Ulster. I feel like I sort of went into the game respecting Cardiff a lot because I feel like they're the form Welsh team in both the URC and in Europe, and with us being almost like similar in terms of how did we get here? We're both looking at each other going, how did we get here? How did we get up to this part of the table? But to give respect to Cardiff, they played a really good game. They really worked us down in the last couple of minutes, and that resulted in that penalty towards the end. Ulster with a semi-rotated side, well, actually quite a heavily rotated side. We had Angus Bell and Augustus on the bench, but as I said, like it's a really good result for Cardiff. It's going to be quite an interesting Interpro show with all of us being a bit like, ooh. The only good game we've got to talk about is the next one, really.
Well,
Yeah,
I can.
But Adam, please elaborate on like Ulster losing by 3 points and Spurs losing by 3 goals.
I just hate the number three. Being a teacher, seeing 6, 7, it's just something about the three times tables is really annoying me at the minute. So it's just gonna haunt me forever.
What I will say on that, so wrap is going to spend a lot of time on that Cardiff result. I
Yeah,
can guarantee that one.
we will spend a lot of time in a more sad level.
Yeah.
If you want a happy side, go to rap. If you want the less happy side, go to the Interpro show.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't seen it, this is the kind of game that you use to sell the competition as
Yeah,
a competition, because it was literally last kick of the game,
yeah,
penalty. It wasn't an easy penalty, and then you had the pressure.
yeah,
The clock had gone red. The clock had literally gone red. You're looking at the clock when you're lining it up, and then Callum Sheedy slots it over. That is the game that sells that
the
the
Challenge
whole
Cup.
kind of Challenge Cup. Yeah,
I
and
think
that
it
one.
also I think it also sells the league in I think when you have URC games in Europe, it also sells the league in a better light as well. We mentioned how last week the Sale attendance wasn't great for Glasgow, the Glasgow match, but I was just like, is that fans from England not really getting their URC fix, not knowing how good of a side Glasgow are? Results like this, today, well, no, not today, this weekend, and how good of a game that was really promotes the league as well as the two teams well in that retrospect.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk about the result of the round at the very end, but that was a good one. Connaught 52, Black Lions 0. Again, we kind of expect that from Black Lion
Yeah.
travelling away. Racing 92, 31, Exeter Chiefs 31. Again, that's
This
got to be up there with a selling
yeah.
it, isn't it?
This really helps Ulster and Cardiff as well for our chances going forward. I feel like this draw really helps us in terms of where we stand. I also mentioned how the Challenge Cup is similar to the Champions Cup, and you can get one win and progress. A draw like this can really help both URC representation in that pool as well.
See, I thought you were going to come in with 31-31. It was a fantastic game. I watched it and it was
No,
some cracking rugby. And this is an
you
excellent. No, no, no. That really helps us.
think
They've
think
shafted
think
themselves.
think United Rugby. We all have to stick together. United Rugby.
Cool. Well, talking about sticking together, there's the result of the round, gentlemen. So, you know, every week, the Dragon, to give you an idea, right? So there's a new presenter on the Dragon's Lair. And I think he joined us about halfway through last season, and he's a really, really positive guy, really, really positive guy. And he's been like, we're going to do this, and every week has been, I can feel that win is coming, I can feel the win is coming. That is the Dragons' first win in 2025. Yeah, so we're nearly over. Um, I the Dragons Lair are recording at the same time as us in our other recording room, and he sent a message just before they were due to start saying, "I may be a little late. I'm still in the pub." so they pod recorded a little bit later, but at one point I think they were 21-6 down. They were 7-6 down at half time, and I think 10 minutes into the second half, and it went up to 21-6. And I genuinely thought, okay, that's it, job done. The Dragons have done what the Dragons do. And then you go back on, and so obviously I'm in all of the chat groups for all of the different teams and all of that kind of stuff. And the Dragons chat group just starts exploding, and then the rap chat group starts exploding, and then everybody else's chat group is like, holy, yeah, Dragons have won. So yeah, I think fair play to them. They've had a lot of stick this week. There's been a lot of stick in the Welsh media saying how rubbish the Dragons are, how poor they are, what do they offer, blah 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 blah, all of that stuff. So for them to turn around and you know, Leon are not a weak side. They didn't send a particularly weak side, but the Dragons bizarrely did rotate quite a few players at home. I think they're focusing on the URC. Let's get the win in the URC, and bang, 23-21. So yeah, full respect to the Dragons coaching team, the players on that one. It was absolutely totally deserved, well overdue, but totally deserved on that one. Okay, let's yeah, that's it. We don't want to discuss. We're not going to preview the next one. That would just be silly. Let's get stuck into then the URC fixtures for round 7. So round 7. This isn't the Christmas round. The Christmas round is the week after, but it feels a little bit festive-y just because it's quite close to that kind of time of year. So there's a couple of derbies in there. There's nobody's traveling particularly far, so it's going to be an interesting one. So I'll kick off then with Cardiff and Scarlets. Obviously, Cardiff are coming off a bit of a high, playing at home, which is a fine time to stuff it right up at home. Um, it's going. This is going to be a really, really good game. The last few games, Cardiff and Scarlet, have all been good games because both sides are trying to play exciting rugby. I don't think the loss in France will affect Scarlets that much. There were quite a few young players there. It's not going to be the same side. When you've got Lousy on the bench and you bring him on for the last 15 minutes, it kind of tells you where we are in that. So I'm going to say that this is going to be a tight game, and I think same as last year, Scarlets are going to nick this by 5 points with a few minutes to go. But I think this is going to be a really good game to watch. So yeah, Scarlets by 5 is my kind of prediction on that one. Adam, you get Leinster versus Ulster, my friend.
Yeah, so as an Ulster fan, this season we went to the hard teams. I think the hardest team we've played is probably Cardiff this year, to be honest with you. But on paper, it would have been the Bulls. It would have been the Bulls and probably that Sharks team that we beat in South Africa. But this is going to be sort of this game here is going to be where we actually are at. I feel like our interpros when we come into them, we always look at the interpros and go, "This is when we know where we are as a squad." We don't have the Champions Cup this year to sort of prove where we are in terms of Europe. We've got the Challenge Cup, which is a bit different. But this Ulster v Leinster game, both teams are going to be ready to go. Both teams are raring to go. First Interpro of the year for Ulster. I think everyone else has had an Interpro. Yep, everyone else has had an Interpro. This is our first one. This is our time to try and prove it. However, Leinster are going to come in with a couple of wins under their belt. They still have to get a couple of wins in the URC as well to get up that other side of the table. I feel like it's going to be a very, very good game, very close game, I hope. Um, to win it, as an Ulster fan, I would love to win it by 3. It says sort of like heart says Ulster by 3, mine says Leinster by 10. But it would be a brilliant way to start this festive run of Interpro games if we manage to do it in Dublin. But on the other hand, it's how many times we've done it in Dublin because we do say that they are a very good squad. That's why we sort of get annoyed by them a lot. But yeah, I'm gonna say Ulster by 3. I'll throw it out. I'll throw it out into the universe. It'll come back. It'll either fly back in my face or I'll come back on next week and just be like, yeah.
Oh, I'm so going to love the comments in this week's. Okay, so Mohammed Stormers against the Lions on Saturday. Thoughts on that one?
So as previously stated, the Lions purposefully left in South Africa, or in Joburg at least, what one could consider, say, their first 15 plus a few other players. So, and then they're probably flying through to Cape Town a bit early. This game will actually be at Cape Town Stadium, not Gqeberha in Eastern Cape. I still feel like Stormers will have a little bit too much for them, but Lions will give them a game. So Stormers by 3.
Stormers by 3. Interesting. Okay. So, Ethan, you've drawn the short story, mate. You get Benetton and Zebra. So, what's your Italian like?
I was about to say non bueno, but that's not that's not the right side, is it?
No maths.
No,
Yeah.
not good.
So,
No.
What would you make of Benetton and Zebra, mate?
I'd probably go. Zebra is a weird team in that obviously they don't win a lot, but they can run you close. And that's the frustrating thing when you see Zebra. I can't remember which match it would be. It'd be like, well, actually, they did beat Edinburgh. They beat Edinburgh. Doesn't mean much, but they beat Edinburgh. And it's just that annoying feeling that they could lose to, let's say, I don't know, Leinster 36-33 one week and then get absolutely ragdolled 40-0 the next week by the Lions, for example. And it's just, you can never know. Whereas Benetton, I quite like Benetton because I feel they are quite consistently good. They're getting much better now. Not, I don't think not out of the dark horse category just yet, but they are a team. They beat us. I think they beat. Did they play Edinburgh this year already? I can't really. They did beat Edinburgh. I think it was 1 or 2 seasons ago, quite convincingly, and they're just one of those teams that I feel when they're on their day, they can give you a right challenge. So I'd probably say Benetton. Let's say Benetton 14-0 or 14.
Okay, so Benetton by 13.
Yeah.
Okay, so staying with you then, Glasgow and Edinburgh. I wonder which way Ethan's going to call
Yeah.
this one.
So I think last year was the first time they did it at Hampton, and oh my gosh, like that was incredible for Glasgow because I think it was like 30-7 or something. And I feel like it's probably going to be similar this year in that, sure, Edinburgh's on paper, they're probably going to bring back Darcy and Duhan and Schumann and all that. But no, I think Glasgow's got that momentum for having just beat Toulouse, and just also it's the unofficial Scotland tryouts for the Six Nations next year. So I think they all know there's a lot more in it. Glasgow obviously still trying to chase that high of winning the RC 2 years ago, or 2 seasons ago, I should say. So yeah, no, I think Glasgow. You'd hope Edinburgh gives a bit of a fight back because if they play like they did against Toulon last week, they can pull a blinder. But I don't think Edinburgh are gonna show up. They did in the Murrayfield last year. That we all got kind of surprised by that Glasgow had a bit of a mare. But no, I'm going to go Glasgow by 20.
Let's go by 20. Oof.
Yeah.
Big one. Okay, so the second South African derby then, Sharks against Bulls. I wonder which way Mohammed's going to go on this one as well. So, Mohammed, Sharks and Bulls, all yours, my friend.
It's the big money South African derby, battle of the really wealthy owners. Yeah, it's a sellout, so hopefully the weather's going to be better than this past weekend. That did also affect the Sharks' ability to play against Saracens because Saracens seemingly brought the English weather with them. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Could have really done with Itzebit in this game again. Should be a nice atmosphere because it's a sellout. But yeah, Heart says Sharks by 3, but Brain says Bulls by 8.
So we have a dilemma. So are we going heart or head? Go on, pick one.
No, go
Go
hard.
Heart.
Go yeah.
Good man.
That's what I did. That's what I did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So next off the rank then is Ospreys and Munster. Now the key bit here isn't this, it's where they're playing. It's the Brewery Field, which is in Bridgend. Obviously Ospreys having issues with the home ground this year. So that's their temporary home ground this year. And it is awful. It is genuinely a shocking pitch.
Is that the one? Sorry. Is that the one
you-
where one of the stands is a truck?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah, named after John Barclay now. So yeah, and the weather this week, the forecast is bad, which all kind of works for the Ospreys. it really drags. It's like playing in the 80s or 90s before we started understanding how grass grows and how water drains. I know they've done a lot of work on the pitch. I know they've done a lot of work on the stands to kind of bring it up to some kind of standard. But, genuinely, we're talking about a club that 2 seasons ago was officially still amateur. That pitch was a part of an amateur club to a couple of years ago. They're now semi-pro, but it's I think that's the key factor. I think Munster are gonna have to outmuscle Ospreys up front if they're going to do anything. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ospreys come away with a win on this one, but I just think Munster. If you're going to try and if any side is capable of outmuscling the Ospreys up front, it's Munster or Leinster, or potentially the Bulls or whatever. So I think Munster probably will come away with a 5 point win on this one. Go on, Adam.
I think they'll be a heavily rotated side. Munster though. One of my the thinking is that they're gonna go for the Leinster derby the week after as well. They've got when you look at their next couple of fixtures, they've got the win in Europe. The only chance that they will want to take like a rotated side is probably this game as well. But as you say, the weather sort of helps the Ospreys, but the weather could also help a Munster B team essentially in that sense, with that aspect of outmuscling as well. So it would be a very interesting team that Munster put out. They'd be resting their Tag Burns, I reckon. They'd be resting Crawley, or if not, put him on the bench as well. But I really think it's important to have the two games around it in context to be where Munster are going to be at for this game, I reckon.
I might change my prediction then, and I'm going to go for a 20 points all draw, just because I like the feeling of sitting on the fence on that one. Um, so last game of round 7 then are Dragons and Connacht. Again, another home game for the Dragons. I mean, having won this week, I cannot genuinely remember the last time Dragons put 2 wins back to back. And I know it would be in one in the league and one in the cup and what have you, but it would be entirely deserved if they did win. Connacht coming off a 50-point win, Dragons coming off a 3-point win. Connacht might be cocky. They might just,
Yeah,
not be taking it that seriously. Same as, like you're saying, Adam, with Munster, where they might be focusing on their interpros the week after. But then
yeah.
again, so might the Dragons. The Dragons play Cardiff the week after, and they might be going for it. But yeah, I'm gonna go that the Dragons are gonna be the Dragons and lose by 10. So Connacht by 10 on that one. But you were gonna come in, Adam, because I can sense the vibe coming through the laptop, mate. Go on.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting one as well because, Connacht had, it's sort of like a mixed team anyway to play Black Lion because of how of course Black Lion traveling, you would naturally bring out sort of like a mixture team as well. So, you know, when you consider the Interpros coming up, you'd have to look at this Dragons side. But on the Dragons sense, you would be like, this could be an opportunity here to take a team like Connacht straight away. But as I say, with Connacht as well, they could have some of their like Irish internationals on the bench, rest them, and then play them against Ulster in the next week. I think it's a very interesting stopgap between, and it's almost like a couple of weeks ago when we had that one round of URC, it was sort of like this should have felt like it should have been last week. And then the European game should have been pushed back because I feel like this round it depends on, well, of course it depends on who you're playing, but this Welsh and Irish sort of rivalry that's kicking start like the last two games of this round really makes it interesting because I thought it was all the way through. I don't know why I didn't have it in my notes. I thought it was all the way through Interpros, but it's sort of like this Welsh rivalry. But I can see the two teams rotating quite heavily for those.
Yeah. But I say Dragons rotated quite heavily for the European game. So they just don't have the squad to, put experienced players in. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with Connacht by 10, just because every time I predict the Dragons to win, all of my Dragons friends get really narky, because apparently me predicting a win is the key factor in them losing all the time. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Connacht winning by 10 on there. Okay, that is the end of European Cup. We're back into the URC, and it's all looking quite good, gents. It's all looking like it's kind of going the way it should. I don't think anybody's season is over yet, not even the Dragons, with that win coming in there just at the right time. Strange things can happen. The ball is designed to bounce in the wrong direction every single time, and it is guaranteed to do that right at the right last moment. Okay, we are done for this week, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Ethan, for your time and your input. So much better than the last Scottish guy. So much better. I know he listens every week, and I know he'll be going, why haven't they said anything about me? Ben, we still love you, mate. Always welcome back. Okay, Hugh will be back next week, so you'll be back to normal. Not as handsome, but that's just one of those things that you've got to put up with next week. Thank you very much for your time tonight, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you all the best. I don't wish everyone teams win. I wish you enjoy your rugby. All the best. Ta-da.